Hello, everyone. Welcome to our special webinar. And today it's very special because we don't have only one person, but we have two experts with us today. And I will talk about them shortly in the upcoming slides. But before we dive into the session, I would quickly like to understand if my voice is audible to all of you. So if I'm audible, please do type a yes in the chat box. And also, if you have any questions, you could just mention it in the chat box and we will address them shortly. And as a lot of you are new to Galvanize, I would quickly like to run through about Galvanize as to who we are and what exactly we do. Well, Galvanize Global Education has been helping students right from their basic test preparations for SAT, GRE, TOEFL, IELTS. And not only that, we have a team of experts helping students for their bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree. Now, what happens here is we help them right from their basic, profile building, university selection, documentation, and a lot of other activities that comes to the admissions part. And not only that, Galvanize is at your back for your last minute assistance, wherein we help you connect with the right loan providers and many more such activities. Well, you won't be surprised, but Galvanize is actually founded and managed by alumni from top universities like Stanford, Harvard, IIT Madras, and IIM Ahmedabad. And as you could see, there are a lot of countries mentioned here, and we are very happy to share that 65 plus countries have chosen Galvanize in their journey of higher education. And not only that, we have placed our students across 1,000 plus universities across 18 plus countries out there. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be seeing your dream destination today on screen out there. And Galvanize would be really glad to help you get into your dream university out there. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are quite active on Quora for various reasons. And a lot of you are looking for, some kind of guidance with respect to admission counseling, test preparations, and I would really urge you to go and take a look at these two threads that I will be sharing in the chat box. This is nothing but students have shared their feedback about Galvanize Global Education, and this would give you more confidence to take your step ahead. And not to forget, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be also using mobile applications, but if not, please do take a look at our mobile applications as these are really amazing. As you could see the ratings as well. So these are available on Play Store, and I will be sharing the link for same in the chat box as well. So that if you haven't used our mobile applications, please do take a look. Those are really amazing applications with easy way of learning for vocabulary, GRE and SAT out there. Well, it's time to go for our first poll. And in this first poll, I would quickly like to understand at what stage you are with your GRE test preparation. Are you thinking to take the test? Are you preparing for the test? You have already booked the test or you have already completed, but planning to go for a better score. And that's how you're planning to retake the test. Okay, I see a lot of students are planning to, a lot of students have already, but looking for a retake, and some of you have booked the test. Great. With that, I've got an idea about the students that we have today on screen. Well, this is something exciting for all the students, wherein we will be sharing the free profile evaluation link in the chat box. For that, I would really request you to stay tuned so that you get the link in the chat box shortly by end of this session. Now, what happens in free profile evaluation? I will be getting in detail in the upcoming slides. Well, I won't take much of your time, but I would quickly like to run my second poll, and there it goes. How would you like to prepare for your GRE test? Would you like to go for a self-preparation, in-person live class, live online classes, or online courses, but a structured personalized study plan? Okay. I'm really glad and excited to see a lot of students have chosen online course with a structured plan out there. Well, with that, I would like to end my poll here, and I would like to quickly talk about who would be your go-to-go person for today's webinar. So we have with us Divya Grace, who's the senior verbal expert at Galvanize, and a little bit about her. She did a BTech in biotechnology from SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Katanglatur. And not only that, she's got vast experience in handling challenging students, right from helping them to crack GRE to help them with university essays, SOPs, LOR, and more. Well, as you could see, she's an engineer, but she turned to be an English expert out there, and she chose Galvanize. And we are very happy to have her here as she has helped students with her passion for English out there. And here we go with our next go-to-go person, our very own Sowmiya Subramaniyam, who's the curriculum manager, and she's also an MS from San Jose State University out there. And you can see her experience is 15 plus years of experience in teaching, training, and content development. And not only that, she loves maths and she makes it even more easy for students out there. And at Galvanize, she's the curriculum manager, as I mentioned, and she's basically the one who responds to your maths doubts. So she's a go-to-go person. And without further delay, I would request Divya to start with the session.
Hello, everyone. Just give me a second to share my slide set. Okay, welcome to today's session. So today we're going to first be talking about the verbal reasoning section. And mainly we're going to focus on the critical reasoning questions in GRE, right? So these questions are known to be quite challenging. So today we're going to look at how we can solve these questions. Now to start with, what are critical reasoning questions? Now on the GRE, critical reasoning questions are technically classified under reading comprehension. So just like RC questions, critical reasoning questions also have a passage, a question, and a series of options from which you can choose the correct answer, right? But the difference is that unlike RC questions, where one passage is accompanied by multiple questions, in critical reasoning, you'll just have one passage and one question accompanying it, right? You won't have multiple questions. And also the passage itself will be quite short. It'll only be about 3 to 5 lines long, whereas in reading comprehension, as many of you must be knowing, the passages can be quite long. Now, in critical reasoning, you will first have an argument. That argument will involve a hypothetical situation, right? They will set the scene for you. They'll give you all the facts. And then based on those facts, you have to respond to the given prompt appropriately. These questions are obviously challenging for a reason, because unlike reading comprehension, where skills are being tested, the only thing you need to watch out in RC questions is how well you're reading the passage, how well you understand the language and the content, right? But in CR, you do need to apply a little bit more of your logical reasoning and your critical analytical skills. Now let's look at the structure of a critical reasoning question. First, you have the argument, right? This is the main part of your question. This is your passage, right? It's quite short, as you can see. And this argument will be divided into the statement and the conclusion. The statement will be setting the scene for you. It will give you all the facts. It will give you the situation. And the conclusion will be the conclusion of that situation, right? It might be true, it might be false. But based on those facts, you have to respond to the given prompt, right? This is your question. And once you've gone through the question and understood it, you can go through the options and choose the correct answer. Now, this is a strategy. We first recommend that you divide the argument into the statement and the conclusion, right? CR questions, especially some passages, can be quite difficult to understand. So when you break it down into the statement and the conclusion, it's easier to process the information, and then you can link them together to get a holistic understanding of the argument. Then, of course, you have to understand each part, right? You have to understand the question. You have to comprehend what the given prompt requires of you. What is it asking you to do? Do you need to find an option that is either weakening the argument, or do you have to find an answer that supports the argument or contradicts it or points out the assumption in the argument? There are different types, right? But you have to really read through the prompt carefully to understand exactly how you can go about finding the right answer. Then, of course, you eliminate the options, read through each point carefully. And if you find a point that does not address the prompt, right, is focusing on only one minor detail, right? It doesn't answer the prompt completely, but is focusing on some other detail of the passage. Maybe it contradicts the prompt. Anything that doesn't answer the prompt completely can be eliminated, right? But make sure that you've read the option completely and you're 100% sure about what the option is saying before you eliminate it. And of course, once you've gone through everything and you've narrowed down the right answer, you can go ahead and select your correct answer. Now let's solve some questions. So first I will show you some questions on the screen. Okay, I will give you some time to solve them on your own. And once you're done, you can post your answers in the chat box. And then I will tell you how you can solve them using our strategy. So there will be a timer for the questions. There'll be a timer on the right-hand corner of your screen. And typically in the actual GRE exam, you would have to solve each CR question in less than 2 minutes, right? Ideally in a minute, but if the question is a little bit more complex, maybe 1.5 minutes, right? But since many of you might be new to this question type or might be struggling with it, I will start off with 2.5 minutes for the first question. And as we proceed and you get used to the question type, I will reduce the time, okay? So let's go to the first one.
Hello.
Yes? Okay, the time is up. I see that a lot of you have already answered. Good effort, right? So now let's go on to the explanation and see how we can actually solve this question and what the correct answer is. So here we have our argument, right? And first, we have our conclusion. Now, I mentioned that the argument is made up of the statement and the conclusion, right? It doesn't always have to be in that order. You don't have to have the statement first. Sometimes, like in this case, you could have the conclusion first. So here the conclusion is saying that sales can be increased by the presence of sunlight within a store. Now, how did they come to this conclusion? The statement is that this fact has been shown by the experience of the only safe fast department store with a large skylight. The skylight allows sunlight into half of the store, reducing the need for artificial light. The rest of the store uses only artificial light. Since the store opened 2 years ago, the departments on the sunlit side have had substantially higher sales than the other departments. What is the argument saying? It's saying that this one department store has a large skylight which covers some parts of the store. So they're saying that these parts of the store that have the sunlight falling into them have greater sales than the other parts, right? That is what the argument is basically telling us. Now, based on this, the prompt says, which of the following, if true, most strengthens the argument. So we have to find the option that supports this argument, right? So option A says, on particularly cloudy days, more artificial light is used to illuminate the part of the store under the skylight. Now, this one is not really relevant to our question, right? It's saying that on days when the sun is not very bright, which is on cloudy days, you need more artificial light to light up those parts of the store that are usually lit by the skylight. This doesn't talk about the sales or anything that pertains to the main conclusion, so we can eliminate this option. Option B says when the store is open at night, under the skylight have sales that are no higher than those of other departments. So what does this mean? It says that at night, when there is no sunlight, obviously, the departments that are usually under the skylight have the same amount of sales as those in other departments, right? No higher than, which means that's not much of a difference, right? There's almost the same number of sales in both, on all parts of the store. This actually sort of supports our argument, right? Because it's saying that if the conclusion of the argument is saying that sales can be increased by the presence of sunlight, then the absence of sunlight should mean that there is no effect on the sales, right? So this option kind of seems like the correct answer, but again, let's go through all the options. Option C says that many customers purchase items from departments in both parts of the store on a single shopping trip. Again, this is irrelevant to our question. Besides the skylight, there are several significant architectural differences between the two parts of the store. So we are not concerned about other architectural differences. We are only concerned about the skylight alone. So we can eliminate this option. Option E says, I think a lot of you chose option E. It says that the departments in the part of the store under the skylight are the departments that generally have the highest sales in other stores in the safe fast chain. Now, this seems tricky, right? But the main thing you have to notice here is that it's talking about other stores in the safe fast chain. Whereas in the argument, it says that a store that has this store that we're talking about is the only safe fast department store with a large skylight. So this option is kind of contradicting the facts that we already know. Therefore, we can eliminate this option as well, which means that option B is the correct answer, right? So whoever chose option B, well done. And now we'll go on to the next question. And again, you will have 2.5 minutes for this one. Time is up. I think a lot of you have already chosen your answers. So now we'll move on to the explanation. So firstly, we have our statement. The mayor is saying that 4 years ago, when we reorganized the city police department in order to save money, critics claimed that the reorganization would make the police less responsive to citizens and would thus lead to more crime. The police have compiled theft statistics from the years following the reorganization that show that the critics were wrong. So what does this mean? It says that the city police department was reorganized, right? And some people said, some critics said, that this reorganization would cause the police to be less responsive to citizens' complaints, right? This would ultimately lead to more crime in the city. But the police have actually found some statistics, and they're saying that the critics are wrong. And the conclusion is that there was an overall decrease in reports of thefts of all kinds, including small thefts. Okay, the key here is reports of thefts, not just thefts. Okay, so remember to read each word carefully. So now, which of the following, if true, most seriously challenges or weakens the mayor's argument? Option A says that when city police are perceived as unresponsive, victims of theft are less likely to report thefts to the police, right? So in other words, if people think that the police are not going to respond to their complaints, then the people who have been robbed will not be very likely to go and complain in the first place, right? Because they think that the police are not going to help them anyway. So now this does weaken the given argument, right? Because if the police are saying that there's an overall decrease in reports of thefts, that could be because people are not reporting it, even when it does happen. So we'll mark this answer as right for now. The mayor's critics generally agree that police statistics concerning crime reports provide the most reliable available data on crime rates. Now, this is actually contradicting the argument, right? It's rather supporting what the police statistics are saying. So we can eliminate this option. In other cities where police departments have been similarly reorganized, the numbers of reported thefts have generally risen following reorganization. Okay, again, this is similar to the previous question. It's not talking about this one city, it's talking about other cities. So this is irrelevant to us. The mayor's reorganization of the police department failed to save as much money as it was intended to save. But that is not the conclusion. The conclusion is about whether it decreased the reports of thefts or not. So we can eliminate this option. During the 4 years immediately preceding the reorganization, before the reorganization, reports of all types of theft had been rising steadily in comparison to reports of other crimes. Now, again, this is irrelevant to us. We don't care about the time before the reorganization. We only care about after the reorganization. So we can eliminate this option as well. So I think a lot of you chose option A. Well done. So we'll go on to the next question. You will have only 2 minutes for this one. So you have to be a little bit quicker. Time's up. So many of you have already chosen your answers. You can continue to give your answers in the chat. We'll move ahead to the explanation. Now, first we have our statement, right? Comparison of the growth rings of ancient trees enables scientists to determine from a piece of timber the year in which the tree used for the timber was felled. So what does this mean? Many of you might have seen growth rings on trees when you see a cross section of a tree, right? Or any piece of wood for that matter. You could see little circles, right? Those are called growth rings. They indicate the age of a tree. So this statement is saying that comparing the growth rings of different ancient trees helps scientists to find out when from a particular piece of wood, when that tree was felled, right? When the tree to which that wood belonged was cut down. Now, hence, by analyzing the growth rings in timber surviving from ancient buildings, archaeologists can determine precisely when those buildings were constructed. So the conclusion of the statement is that by studying the growth rings on the wood that was used to construct ancient buildings, archaeologists are able to find out exactly when those buildings were built. So now, based on this argument, we have our prompt, which says, which of the following is an assumption on which the argument depends? So this argument is resting on an assumption, okay? We have to find out what it is. So option A says that the timber used for construction purposes in ancient times was made from very old trees. This is irrelevant to our argument. Also, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because if the buildings were built in ancient times, then the trees also would be old since they belong to the same time period. So we can eliminate this option. Option B says the growth rings of any tree felled in a given year are identical to the growth rings of any other tree felled in that year. Also, this is also irrelevant, right? And there's also kind of contradicting our argument. Argument is saying that comparing the growth rings of different trees helps scientists determine when a particular tree was cut down. Now, if all trees in a given year look the same, if all the growth rings look the same, scientists wouldn't be able to come up with that argument in the first place. So this is really not an assumption. It's rather contradicting what the argument is saying. So we can eliminate this option. Option C says that the oldest of the ancient buildings that survive to the present day were constructed of the most durable woods. Now, we don't care about the quality of the wood that was used, so we can eliminate this as well. Ancient builders did not use more than one type of wood for the construction of a given building. This is also irrelevant, right? We don't care how many types of wood were used. We only care about when those buildings for which the wood was used were built. Now, option E, obviously, now that we have narrowed it down, option E is the right answer. And it says that the timber that was used in ancient building construction had not, prior to being used in the construction of the buildings, lain unused for any indeterminable amount of time. Now, this is quite a long option, right? What does it mean? It says that when the wood was cut down, when the tree was cut down and the wood was collected, it was not immediately used to build a building, right? If it had just been lying somewhere in a storehouse somewhere for a year or two, and then that wood was used to build a building, right? Then the scientists wouldn't be able to get the accurate date or the accurate time when that building was built, right? Because they would be looking at the growth rings, which would indicate when the tree was cut down, right? The wood wasn't immediately used for the building. It was just lying there for a few years. So this would actually be the assumption. The assumption in the argument is that when the trees were cut down, the wood was immediately used for constructing the buildings. If that is not the case, then this argument would fall through, right? This is our correct answer. Now we have our last question. You will only have 1.5 minutes for this one, so you'll have to be really careful. time is up now. So we'll go ahead to the explanation. I see a lot of you have chosen your answers already. Now, first we have our statement. It says that the United States off as a nation of parakeet lovers. Parakeets are a kind of bird, right? Yet in a census of parakeet owners in selected comparable countries, the United States ranked second with 11 parakeet owners per 100 people. So what does this mean? It means that when a census was conducted among a few countries, the United States ranked second, right? With the country having 11 parakeet owners for every 100 people. Now, the conclusion can be drawn from this that people in the United States are more likely to own parakeets than are people in most other countries. Now, the prompt says knowledge of which of the following would be most useful in judging the accuracy of the conclusion. And so if we say that this, if we want to verify whether this conclusion is correct, right? Whether the United States, people in the United States are more likely to own parakeets than most of the countries, right? You would need some extra information. So which information do you need? Do you need the number of parakeets in the United States? Not really, right? There might be wild parakeets, there might be some in zoos, and these won't really come under the census, right? So we can eliminate this option. The number of parakeet owners in the United States? Not really. And we already have that answer in the argument, right? The 11 parakeet owners per 100 people. We already know that roughly. So we don't really need this information. The number of parakeet owners per 100 people in the country that ranked first in the census. Now, this is also irrelevant, right? Because we are not trying to compare the US with the country that ranked first. We are comparing it with most other countries, right? We're comparing it with the large majority, not the one minority. So we can eliminate this option as well. The number of parakeet owners in the United States compared to the number of owners of other pet birds in the United States. Now, this, similar to our first and second question, is talking about something outside our scope, right? Other pet birds are something that we're not concerned with. So we can eliminate this as well, which brings us back to the last option as the right answer, right? The number of parakeet owners per 100 people in the countries not included in the census. Now, if you read the question carefully, it says that in a census of parakeet owners in selected comparable countries. That means not all the countries in the world were used in the census, right? Only a few were used. And among those few, the United States ranked second. Now, if you want to conclude that the United States has more parakeet owners than most other countries, you would have to know how many parakeet owners are there in all the other countries in the world, right? Those which are not there in the census. Only then could you make such a generalized statement. So therefore, this is the information that we need, and option E is the correct answer. So good job to those who chose the right answer. And I hope this was helpful to those who didn't choose the right answer, right? So we're now done with the verbal part. I will now hand it over to Sowmiya to take up the quant section.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see you all back here in the series of webinars that we have. We have been conducting lots of webinars, and I could see recurring students coming here attending these webinars. I hope this webinar was really, really useful. So Divya had given you a sneak peek into what critical reasoning section is all about in the actual GRE, right? So that was a wonderful presentation from Divya. What are all the nuances that you need to understand for critical reasoning? Now, critical reasoning, logical reasoning, verbal reasoning, analytical reasoning, quantitative reasoning. So basically, GRE tests the reasoning skills of the students, right? What kind of skills is tested by GRE? It's the reasoning skills. What is critical reasoning versus logical reasoning? You all heard Divya talk about critical reasoning, right? Can some of you post it in the chat box? What did you understand? What do you mean by critical reasoning? What kind of questions was conducted in this session? What kind of questions did you encounter in this session? What do you mean by critical reasoning? Can some of you post in the chat box? We'll go from there. Any one word or one line whatever you feel like, whatever you inferred from what a critical reasoning is all about, you could post it here. Well, I don't see any takers. Okay. Ability to discern information. Okay. In writing, the ability to discern information. Wonderful. Okay. Critical reasoning is all about systematically discovering, analyzing, and solving, right? It's basically about a statement and you're arguing, and an argument, statement and an assumption, statement and a conclusion, right? That is what critical reasoning is all about. So it's the process of assessing your ability to analyze and evaluate arguments. It includes facts while finding solution. Excellent. Yes, that is what critical reasoning is all about. So as you saw, those questions are the kind of questions that you encountered when Divya was presenting it. It was all about, what do I say? A statement was given to you. You are like finding out some arguments for that particular statement, right? Choosing which one is akin to that particular statement. Now, what is logical reasoning? Logical reasoning is also almost like critical reasoning, but you're going to infer it from data, right? Logical reasoning, and then that goes into quantitative reasoning. So while you analyze the categorical variables in critical reasoning, most of you should be familiar with statistics, right? When you analyze categorical variables in critical reasoning, it's more of a numerical quantitative variables that you analyze in your quantitative reasoning or your logical reasoning, right? It's evaluating information based on logical principles, drawing inferences from graphs, plots, data, and all that. The whole world is running on data now, right? Big data analysis, AI, everything is running on data now. So data interpretation is a very key aspect of any test prep these days. This lays the foundation for all the data analysis that you're going to learn or going to work on in the future. So every test prep, right, whether GRE or GMAT or whatever test prep you plan to take, this data analysis is a main important part of any test prep. So this lays the foundation. You need to understand what kinds of graphs you need to infer from. How do you infer the graphs? What are the aspects that you need to look into the graphs? What are the statistical measures that you're going to look for? All these are very, very important, because when you want to do a master's in any field, right, you cannot escape this data analysis these days, because the entire world is running on data. So this webinar is basically on problem solving and data analysis, which is kind of an extension from the critical reasoning that Divya had already presented in verbal. So critical reasoning on verbal extended to logical reasoning in mathematics. That is your problem solving and data analysis. Now, any test prep, right? Doing a test prep or attempting a test like GRE involves two important aspects. One is concept clarity. The other is time management. So most of the syllabus, if you look at the syllabus in GRE, it's a very basic syllabus in mathematics, right? Whatever you had learned in your primary section or your middle school, or basically up to your grade 10 probably. Nothing advanced level, no calculus, no trigonometry, nothing is tested in GRE. So given that it's a very basic prime numbers, composite numbers, even numbers, odd numbers, very basic algebra, linear equations, and all that is tested in GRE. What is very critical here? It's attempting those questions in a timed environment. The way the questions are framed in GRE is little different from the routine way of what you have encountered in a school or college. That is what makes GRE little different. But then if you understand the strategies to approach the problems, right? If you had looked at all the webinars that we've been conducting, we have been like exploring the strategies for every different types of questions. It could be a quantitative comparison questions, MCQs, MAQs, or your numeric entry questions, any kind of questions. What are the different strategies? So it's all about how well you apply the strategies within that short duration of time, so that you could bank that time on questions that are a little harder in GRE. Right. So if you look at it, here I've given you a split up of the average time that's required per question. Multiple choice question, 2 is the 2 minutes. Maximum time should be 2 minutes. And multiple choice questions, you go for back substitution. Multiple answer questions also, you go for back substitution. And you could also go for elimination method. Like if you looked at the way Divya had presented in the critical reasoning section, she was going by the elimination method, right? She looked at everything. Rather than nailing down what is the right answer, go for elimination. Weed out all the incorrect options given in the question, you will be left out with the correct option. That's the best way to tackle a multiple choice question. The same strategy applies for quantitative reasoning as well. So if you look at data interpretation question, people who are taking GRE before your September 22nd, when you have your enhanced GRE, You know the time limit is 3 hours 45 minutes. So in that case, you will have at least 2 data interpretation sets question. Each data interpretation question will have 3 questions under them. So that could be in the form of a histogram, bar chart, pie graphs, any kind of data interpretation questions, or it could be a probability related question, data analysis questions, statistics, anything, right? So data interpretation question will have a graph, and then you will have 3 questions under that, 2 graphs and three questions under that. So basically, ideally, each section will have at least 2 or minimum of 2 data interpretation questions in the current GRE. But in the enhanced GRE version that is going after September 22nd, when you have the shorter GRE, there'll be just 1 data interpretation question per section. So data interpretation is a GRE, is the ability to interpret or visualize, make sense of the information given in the graphs, like inferring from the data. So basically here, we will not be dealing only with data interpretation questions. We'll also be dealing with data analysis types questions. What do you mean data analysis questions? This could include statistical measures like mean, median, mode, probability, standard deviation, everything is included in this webinar. That is also part of your GRE. The way the questions are asked will be different. You could have a quantitative comparison question and a probability question tested under QC type. Probability question tested in a numeric entry question. Probability question could be a MCQ type or a MAQ type, right? Similarly, standard deviation question also. Standard deviation, though it's a one-off questions, of late, the recent most GRE, there'll be like a few, 3 or 4 questions on standard deviation which put the students off. Because earlier, the earlier GRE and all that, standard deviation was just a one-off question. It was more to do with the normal distribution. But then in the recent past, there have been like several standard deviation questions that's been asked in the exam. The kind of standard deviation questions were mostly like QC questions asked in the GRE, latest GRE exam. Right. So here we have a few, a different kind of a data interpretation question. If you look at this is a double bar graph, which shows the results from rolling dice. Normally, if you look at the data interpretation question, there could be a graph. You could have a data in that graph. That data would correspond to a real life situation. Some real life data would be given. That could be in the form of a histogram. And there could be a combination of histogram and a line graph, combination of histogram and a circle graph. All those combinations will be given to you. And the questions that are asked based on that would be a question on percentages, ratio, proportion. These are the kinds of questions that will be tested. But if you look at this, there were a few data interpretation questions where probability was tested. Data interpretation, normally probability is not tested, but this is one of questions where the probability was tested in data interpretation questions. So the double bar graph below, which shows the results from rolling 2 dice, 1 green and 1 yellow. So the moment you encounter a data interpretation question like this, all you have to do here is identify what is given in the question, right? Read through that graph properly. What is that on the y-axis? What is there on the x-axis? The horizontal axis is always the x-axis. The vertical axis is always the y-axis. So y-axis gives you the frequency. The horizontal x-axis gives you the value rolled. That's the number 1 roll. That is for a green die. It is rolled thrice. And then for it is the occurrence of 1 is 3 times. And the occurrence of 1 in the yellow die is 7 times. That's what it means by the 2 bars in the first one, right? First part for number 1, the number of times the die is rolled is thrice, or number of occurrences of the number 1 for a green die is 3. The number of occurrences for number 1 in the yellow die is 7. Similarly, if you look at the second bars, the pairs of bars that you have, the number of occurrences for 2 is 3 for a green die, and that for an yellow die would be 8. This is what you mean by this particular double bar graph. So double bar graph is also not a very common question in your GRE, but then double bar graphs, this is like a different type of question, not a regular data interpretation question that you can possibly encounter. Now, what are the type of questions that was asked in, this is an actual GRE question. This was asked in one of the GRE tests. You look what is asked in the GRE question. What is the median value rolled by the green die? That was the question. So let us go back here. The green die, you can see the green bar. The question is asking about the median value rolled by the green die, right? You could go for an estimate. Most of the times the estimate would become right, but then it is always advisable to know the concept of median before attempting such questions. So you should be thorough with the statistical measures of mean, median, and mode and all that before attempting such a question. So the question is asking about finding the median of the green die, right? Median of the rolls of the green die. So for that, you need to understand what is it that is on the x-axis, what is it on the y-axis. As I told you, x-axis, it means that the number 1 is there. Number 1 is rolled thrice, or the number of occurrences of number 1 is 3. That's what it means, right? So it's actually 1, 1, 1. You can list that if you want to, or by looking at it, find the number of occurrences, just put a number on top of the bar here, histogram here that's given here. So that becomes easier for us to solve the problem. What is median? That is again something that you should know. Median is the middle value, right? When a data set is sorted, arranged in the ascending order, you find out the median, which is the middle value. The question is asking what is the median rolled by the green die? How do you answer such a question? Now, if you look at it, the question is asking about the green die, so which means you're going to look at the green bar here. Now, how many total number of rolls are happening for the green die? That would be, if you look at it, I've written the frequency on top of it. The number of times is number 1 is rolled. Number of times, the number of occurrence of number 2, that would be 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. There are 19 rolls of this green die that has happened, right? So 19, which means 1 is occurring thrice, 1, 1, 1. I've just listed it down so that it is easier for you to understand. Number 2 is occurring thrice, that will be 2, 2, 2. Number 3 is occurring 4 times. If you just keep listing it, what is the median? Since it's 19, the median has to be the 10th value. The 10th value would be 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. The 10th value is the number 3 here. So the median value rolled by the green die is 3. The answer is choice B here. Clear? Next question is estimate the arithmetic mean value rolled by the yellow die. As I told you, mean, median, all these are very common questions, but normally under data interpretation questions, you won't get such a statistical measure, right? But this is just a one-off question which was tested in a recent GRE where they asked about statistical measures in mean, median, probability in a data interpretation question. So estimate the arithmetic mean value rolled by the yellow die. Again, you have to look at the yellow die first, understand what is the meaning of that arithmetic mean. Arithmetic mean is actually the average, right? So if you look at it, it's asking about the yellow die. So for that, understand how many times the number 1 occurs, or number 1 is rolled in the yellow die. How many times number 2 is rolled in the yellow die? If you look at it, number 1 is rolled 7 times. Number 2 is rolled 8 times. That would be 1, 1, 1. Either you can list all the ones 7 times, list the number 2s 8 times, list the number 3 1 time, list the number 4 twice, list the number 5 once, list the number 6 once, and proceed and find out the mean by the usual method. Sum of the observations by the number of observations. What is the total number of observations? That is the number of times a yellow die is rolled. That would be 7 plus 8 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1. You add them, you get the answer as 20 rolls. There are 20 rolls of this yellow die. Now, out of that, you have to find out the mean. So the normal procedure here, when you have a frequency and the data given here, either you could list them like 1, 1, 1, 7 times and find out the mean, or how would you know to multiply the number of rolls? Yeah. So when I say that 1 is rolled 7 times, it actually means it's 1, 1, listing it as 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 7 times, right? So when you find out the mean, you're going to add 1 7 times. Adding 1 7 times is the same as multiplying 1 by 7. That is why you are multiplying it by the frequency. That's a common thing that is done when you find out the arithmetic mean. You multiply the data by the number of times the data occurs. So rather than listing it down, suppose I say find out the mean of 2, 2, 3. Either you take it as 2 plus 3 divided by 3, or you could take it as 2 times 2 plus 3 by 3. It's the same value. That is what you mean. That is how you get interpreted here, because it's easier for you to multiply because you know the frequency here, right? So it's 1 times 7 plus 2 times 8 plus 3 times 1 plus 4 times 2 plus 5 times 1 plus 6 times 1. So that would give you the numerator to find out the arithmetic mean. Denominator, of course, is the total number of rolls of this yellow die. That would be 20. And when you divide it, you get 2.25 as the answer, which is option A in the question that was given you. So as I told you, right, this is a data interpretation question where this is one of questions where your statistical measures are asked as part of data interpretation question. Look at this third question. Assume that the green die is fair. What do you mean by fair die? Fair die means you have equally likely outcomes, right? So the die that we normally roll, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each number has got an equal probability of occurrence. The probability of getting a 1 is 1 over 6. Probability of getting a 2 in a roll of a die is 2, 1 over 6. 3 is 1 over 6. These are all equally likely outcomes. So that kind of die is called as a fair die. Assume that the green die is fair. What is the probability that after one more roll, the mean will increase? This is kind of, I wouldn't say it's a tricky question. This is a kind of question that we would normally not encounter, right? So if you look at the way it's structured, it is little confusing. What do they mean by after one more roll, the mean will increase or something like that, right? So this is kind of little confusing. What do they mean by that? What is the probability that after one more roll of the green die, the arithmetic mean will increase? So for that, we need to identify what is the current arithmetic mean of this green die, right? That is very important. First, identify the current arithmetic mean. What did we get the current arithmetic mean as? For the green die, we have not yet found the arithmetic mean. We find the current arithmetic mean of the green die. That would be like 1 times 3 plus 2 times 3 plus 3 times 4, 4 times 3, 5 times 3, 6 times 3. Add them, divided by the number of rolls, you get the current arithmetic mean as 2.2. The question says, after one more roll, the mean will increase. Now the catch is here. The mean has to increase. We are going to increase the number of rolls. The number of rolls would be 21. But what do you get in that extra number, right? When you roll a die another time, what is that number you get? You wouldn't know. That is what you need to find out here. You actually do not know what is that number you would get. Suppose you get a number 1, right? You roll the die again. That is, there are actually now 21 rolls. The 21 rolls, the 21st roll, you get the number 1. Then what does it mean? The occurrences of that would become, this is a green die, therefore that will be, the frequency would become 4 here for number 1. So this would become 1 times 4 and the total would increase to 57. So if the value that you get is 1, that is the roll, the number on the die in the 21st throw is 1, then the mean would actually become 57 by 21. That would be 2.7, which is less than the current mean. But the question says the mean score should be more than the current mean, which means the number that you can encounter is ruled out here. It cannot be the number 1. Assume that it's the number 2. Still it will be ruled out because in that case, the mean would be 58 divided by 21. That will still be around 2.7, which will be less than the current mean. So ideally, the number that you're going to look for here, right? The number on the roll should be either 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically, you're just looking at the probability of getting a 3, 4, 5, or 6 in the roll of a die. The entire problem now reduces to getting a 3, 4, 5, or 6 in the roll of a die. Because the question says probability that after one more roll, the mean score will increase. That is what is the question asking for. So what are the numbers that you can possibly get? It would be 3, 4, 5, or 6. What is the probability of getting a 3, 4, 5, 6 in a roll of a die? It's 4 over 6, which is 2 over 3. So the entire problem now boils down to the role of getting a number 3, 4, 5, or 6 in a roll of a die. Right? So it is advisable. It is, see, when you just look at the problem the first time, you find it a little difficult to comprehend that problem. But analyze what that question is asking for. What are the keywords in the question? Mean score will increase. So when will the mean score increase? What should be the number, the values in the die, so that the mean score will increase? It cannot be 1, it cannot be 2. We have eliminated that. So it has to be only 3, 4, 5, or 6. So now the probability is nothing but 4 over 6. Clear? Yeah. Moving on to the next type of question. As I told you, right, of late, more of quantitative comparison questions are being tested in statistical measures. Probability, right? This is a very common probability questions. It's a quantitative comparison question. Set A consists of 35 consecutive integers. Quantity A is the probability of selecting an even number less than the median from set A. The probability of selecting an odd number greater than the median from set A. Okay, I've given you this question. I would want you all to come out with an answer. Let me wait for a minute or so. Type your answers that you get in this chat box. Yes, please go ahead. Think about this problem and type your answers. It says the set A consists of 35 consecutive integers. It's talking only about set A, and you should know what is the meaning of the term median and probability. That's all. Please type your answers in the chat box. Whatever answer you get, it's fine. Anyway, I'm going to explain this problem. Go ahead and type your answers. I could see some answer here coming up. Somebody says C. Okay. 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 I'm getting varied answers now. Anybody with any other answers? Okay. C's and B's are coming up. D. Okay. D's, B's, C's. I think almost all the four except quantity A. I think I'm getting all the answers. People have given the answers as B, C, and D. I think there's an equal probability of getting the B, C's, and D's as the answers now. Yes, somebody has given the answer as A also. Okay, wonderful. So I've got all the answers right now. Let me analyze what this question is asking for. The probability of selecting an even number less than the median from set A. The probability of selecting an odd number greater than the median from set A. Now, see there are several ways to attack this problem, right? 35 consecutive integers are given to you. 35 is an odd number, right? So you know the median has to be the 18th observation. I wouldn't say that it has to be the number 18 because I'm not starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a consecutive. It could be any set of consecutive integers you're looking at here. It could be 2 to 36. It could be 3 to 37. It could be 4 to 38 and so on. Any set of consecutive integers. Consecutive integers are numbers which are next to each other. Now, median is the 18th integers. Number of integers on both sides, the median just tells you that it is going to divide the data set exactly into 2 equal halves. So the number of integers on either sides of the median is 17. Now, since the number of integers is an odd number, right? Number of integers on either side is 17, which is an odd number. You would definitely know that the number of even integers on the left side might not be equal to the number of odd integers on the right side. That is a clue that quantity A is not equal to quantity B. It cannot be option C. Right? Right. Now, would be hard. Yes, you have to analyze it by getting some data sets, right? If you cannot understand this kind of analysis, I'll give you another analysis also. Now let me complete this analysis. If the median is an even number, then the quantity B would be greater than quantity A, obviously, right? When the median is an even number, obviously the quantity B, that the number of even integers on the left side or the right side, that greater than median would be higher than the number of even integers on the left side. Therefore, quantity B would be greater than quantity A. Otherwise, quantity A is greater than quantity B. If you're not able to go by this kind of analysis, you can always take some data sets with you. But make sure that the way you take the data sets, right, there will be like, you could start with an odd number and end with an odd number, like 1 to 35, or it could be 3 to 37, like that. Or you could start with an even number, say 2 to 36, or it could be 4 to 38, like that. So pick the two data sets where you start with an odd number. Obviously, you're going to end with an odd number because there are 35 consecutive integers. Or you could start with an even number and end with an even number, but still there should be 35 consecutive integers. So look at this. I've taken two cases here. I'm going to start with an odd number and end with an odd number. Take numbers 1 to 35. Very simple, simplest example that you can take for. 1 to 35 is 35 consecutive integers. Median is obviously 18. 18 is the median here because 1 to 35, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. 35. Probability of selecting an even number less than median. That will be like probability of selecting even numbers from 1 to 17. That would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on, right? So the probability of selecting even numbers would be 8 over 35, the first case. Probability of selecting an odd number greater than median, that is quantity A would be 8 over 35 and quantity B would be 9 over 35. Because I've started with an odd number, ended with an odd number. But then if you start with an even number, right? If you take that set as 2 to 36, it could also be any set you want, you can take it. You could take it as 4 to 38 also, as long as there are like 35 consecutive integers in that, right? 2 to 36, median will be, in this case, it will be excuse me, it will be 19. Now, in this case, since we started with 2 to 36, the number of even numbers on the left side of median and the right side of median, right? Left side of median, the number of even numbers will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, right? That will be like 9 even numbers. So quantity A would be 9 over 35 and quantity would be B would be 8 over 35. Since we have two inconclusive evidences, right? You could have either quantity A greater or quantity B greater. Quantity C, I mean, A and B are not equal. That is something that we have already ruled out because number of even numbers and number of odd numbers will not be the same. Therefore, the answer goes to option D. I hope it's clear to all of you who mark the answers as A, B, and C, right? I hope it's clear. If it's clear, just put an S there in the chat box. Shall we move on to the next question? Okay. Okay, good. So next question is, as I told you, standard deviation. Of late, in the recent past, right, there'll be like some questions on standard deviation. Normally, you could have a normal distribution question that is just a one-off question in GRE. That could be like 2 graphs that will be given to you. And then the question would be, which of these standard deviation is greater? Or what is the probability distribution of 1 standard deviation from the mean, 1, 2 standard deviation from the mean? These are all very common questions in GRE. But again, this kind of standard deviation question is a one-off question, right? But of late, it has been more emphasis on standard deviation, quartiles, interquartiles, percentiles, and all such kinds of questions are occurring in GRE. Right. Now, if you look at this question, first you need to understand what do you mean by standard deviation. That concept clarity is very, very important. The way GRE questions are framed, right, you don't need any formula at all. So please don't get what panicky, oh, I don't know the formula for standard deviation. Standard deviation formula is very complicated. Standard deviation is square root of the summation of x minus x bar the whole square by n. But that is not what is going to be tested in GRE, because GRE is a skill-based test. Nobody is going to ask you to memorize some formula which is very complicated. Very simple formula only will be tested in GRE, right? So this formula absolutely not required. Standard, when you talk about standard deviation, all you need to understand is what is standard deviation. Standard deviation, deviation from the mean. How well is the data set deviated from the mean, right? What is the spread of the data set? I'm glad to see people coming out with the answers. Yes, please proceed. If you know the answers, please just ping the answers. Continue pinging it as I explain this question. Standard deviation is how much is there a spread in the distribution, right? How well is the data set spread? It's also called as spread, like how we say that mean, median, mode are measures of central tendency. That is more to do with the clusters of data, right? Where is the data clustered? It could be the mean, could be the median, or mode could be the measure of that cluster. Standard deviation range, interquartile ranges, all those things mean the spread of the distribution. How spread out is the distribution, right? How spread out is the distribution from the mean or from each other. So you have to understand how well the distribution is spread out. That is very important here. For that, apart from understanding what is standard deviation, you also need to know some property. That is, this is a very important property. If differences of consecutive data in one set X are greater than the differences on the consecutive data in another set, the standard deviation of the first set X is greater than standard deviation of later set Y. This is a very important rule that you should know about standard deviation. When the differences between consecutive elements, right, in a data set, it's if you take the differences, right, because after all, standard deviation, if you look at it formula wise, if you want to look at it mathematically, it is sigma x minus x bar the whole square by n. So you kind of find out differences between that and the mean, every data set from the mean. Rather, you could just look at the differences between consecutive terms and arrive at the conclusion here, right? Now, so I have taken 2 data sets here. So as you know, quantitative comparison question, it's always, when we talk about quantitative comparison questions in other topics, like it could be ratio proportions, it could be like geometry, or it could be algebra. I had been given lots of webinars on this quantitative comparison questions. We would go for something called a zone F, wise choice of plugging in numbers. So plugging in numbers helps to solve quantitative comparison questions better. Similarly, you're going to plug in data sets here. Find out some examples of data sets, right? Suppose KCA have taken data sets where the difference between consecutive terms is 1, another data set with difference between consecutive terms is 2. So obviously standard deviation of set A is less than standard deviation of set B because of this property. But then if I take it vice versa, so I could pick another data set, right? Where the difference between consecutive numbers is 2 in case data set A, but difference between consecutive numbers is 1 in data set B, then obviously standard deviation of B is less than standard deviation of A. So you have, what do I say, inconclusive evidence is here. Therefore, you conclude that it has to be option D, the relationship cannot be determined. I hope it's clear, right? Some of you have given the answers as B and C's and all that. I hope this is clear now. The way you pick the data set matters here. What kind of data set you need to pick, that depends on how much concept clarity you have. So as I told you, concept clarity is very, very important. Do not ignore data analysis, because this is one topic, right? I would say not many students are aware of it till their grade 10. Right? Maybe in a grade 11, they are introduced to the statistical measures and all that. So maybe algebra, geometry, and all those things are very, very, what do I say, topics that you had already learned and you had been learning, relearning and all that. But this is one topic that you normally encounter only in probably in a grade 10 or later of grade 10 in your high school or higher secondary school, right? Yes. Pauline, we do have videos on these types of questions on our platform, right? So I would like to move ahead with this. You can always go ahead and look at the recorded video, so you will understand this explanation better. Yes, you could get the recording of this video. You will understand this, right? Still, if you are not able to understand, you can get back to there'll be like phone numbers and the contact numbers and the mail ID they'll be given. You can contact the study abroad advisors. They'll help you with that. I mean, they'll reach out to us for the correct explanation for this. Okay, yeah. Completely random in both the data sets and what can be done. So the way the questions are framed, Neeraj, it will not be like that. You pick see, this is something that we pick, right? The differences is something that we pick. The data set is something we pick. Don't pick a data set where the difference is completely random. Why don't you pick it in such a way that it's easier for you? That is not a part of the question, right? Picking the data set is in your hands. So pick it in such a way that it's easy for you to solve. Clear? Okay. Right. So these are the types of questions possibly that you can encounter in GRE. And as I just told you, I just told Palin, we have got lots of 2,500 question assessments. I mean, questions are there on the platform, right? Different types of questions. What are all the possible questions that you can encounter in GRE? That is all there on the platform. So the way the teaching works, right? If you look at this, let me play this video. This is on the critical reasoning. The instructor who just conducted this webinar, she is the one who is like created this video. Such wonderful videos are there on the platform. Yes, so it'll be easier for you to understand this using this video. Can you hear this video?
Ma'am, we are able to hear the video, but it's very, very low. So
okay.
yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Ramya could share the audio, right? I mean, she'll share the recording with you. At that time when you play it, I think you will be able to listen to this audio properly. So just to give you a sneak peek of how our pedagogy is, we do have such videos right from the fundamentals. For those who do not even know what critical reasoning is, what is the meaning of argument and all that, everything is explained in detail. The same instructor who explained now, Divya, has explained it in very detailed manner. So such videos are there on the platform. Just to let you know that such videos are there. You could always get this recording, as I told you. And then
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. The volume is not coming. So I think I will be sharing the links in the chat box so they can take a look and see how exactly it works.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'm sorry about that. So if you look at that, this is on the quantitative reasoning. This is a very, very common question that students ask, right? They're all always confused between mutually exclusive and independent events. Definitely, there'll be questions on these in the actual GRE. You could have questions where you need to identify which ones are mutually exclusive, which ones are access more videos besides these two. Yes, Veronica, you have to enroll on our platform. You have lots of videos on the platform, from the very basic videos to the higher level permutations, combinations. They're all explained in detail, just like how I've explained these probability questions, right? On set theory and all that. Right from set theory, we don't just start with probability. It starts from set theory. From set theory to the probability to permutations, combination, everything is explained in data analysis. Yeah. Would practically take more than 2 minutes, maybe how to solve such complex data. No, Neeraj, when you practice that, right, when you understand the concepts really well. For example, there was that first question was on the rolling of a die. If you just understand that question really well, right, it's just a 1.5 minutes question, actually. It's not a 3 minutes, more than 2 minutes at all. Practice such questions. It comes more by practice and understanding the concept really well. So this is like a different type of data interpretation question that we just saw. We normally get a question on a percentage increase, or what is the change in percentage, or it could be what is the ratio of boys to girls, something like that. That's a normal question, right? Where calculator is involved in that. You have to use a calculator, on-screen calculator, to get the answer very easily. But then this is a type of question where solving this question is actually very simple. You look at it, right? The way that it's about the dice, right? So except the third question, I think the first two questions can be solved very easily because it's to do with arithmetic mean and median. That's all. As I told you, I had been like, the moment I encountered the plot, right, the rectangle was there, I just put those, I will draw it on my scratch paper and then replace that bar on top with a number. The number would be the frequency for that bar. That way it becomes easier for me to identify what is the median and mean. So you need to understand the meaning of median and mean to solve these problems. So when you practice the mean and median standalone problems, this problem becomes very simple. The third question on probability might take a little longer time, that also not more than 2 minutes, because reading, again, understanding that it's just one more roll of a die. So you have to go for elimination. It can't be 1, it can't be 2. So it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Okay. Okay. So just to show it, do we have on? Yes, there is an on-screen calculator. So the moment you start your test, there'll be an on-screen calculator, which you can use it. You can open it whenever you want to and close it. Yes, it's there. It's there on the on-screen itself. Yeah. You could take the help whenever you want to. Right. Now, as you all aware, there is a shorter GRE test that's going to happen, right? Starting September 22nd. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it, but then right now the GRE length, right? The length of the GRE is more than 3 hours, 45 minutes. But the shorter GRE, it's like amazingly short. It's just for 2 hours. It's 1 hour, 58 minutes exactly. So instead of 5 sections, you will just have 4 sections now. 2 of quant and 2 of verbal sections. Right? It is going to be still section-wise adaptive. And one wonderful thing is, see, normally it is the essays that pull the students' score down. I mean, it takes a lot of time for them to do the essays because AWA is the first section always. Then you have the verbal reasoning or the quantitative reasoning as the next sections. So AWA, the analytical writing section, will always be the first section. So instead of 2 essays, we just have 1 essay. This is with effect from September 22nd, 2023. It's going to be the shorter version of GRE. Now, everything else almost remains the same except the number of sections and number of questions in each section. Earlier, it used to be 40 to 60 questions, 60 to 90 minutes. AWA from analytical writing assessment. That is the full form for AWA. So that is an essay that you need to write down. One could be right now in the current GRE, it could be analyzing an argument, analyzing an issue. Those are the 2 kinds of prompts that will be given to you. And you have to write an essay on both the prompts, right? But then in the enhanced GRE, that is from September 22nd, 2023, there'll be just 1 essay. There'll be just an analyzing an argument essay. You will not have an analyzing an issue essay at all. There'll be just 1 essay, which is actually very student-friendly, welcoming for the students also. Right? And the score reporting also, it will not take much longer. It will just be 8 calendar days. So it measures the same skill, right? You will have the on-screen calculator. It will be section-based adaptive. You will have, the verbal and quant sections alternating between each other. The only thing is the number of questions is reduced. The time limit is also reduced now, which is actually a breather for the students. Normally, you don't have breaks between sections because the number of questions is very, very less here, right? So just to tell you here, if you look at it, this analytical writing will have just one essay task for 30 minutes. Quantitative reasoning section, the first section will have 12 questions. The second section will have 15 questions, 21 minutes and 26 minutes. And verbal reasoning, 12 questions, 18 minutes. Verbal reasoning section 2. I'm sorry, this has to be section 2, 15 minutes and 23 questions. The total time is only for 1 hour, 58 minutes rather than for 4 hours, which is actually a welcoming sign, right? So, and the score also, you will get it within 8 days or maximum one, a little more than 1 week. That's a time limit for getting that score. So students who want to apply for the spring admissions or your next fall, right, fall 2024, it is advisable to go for the enhanced version. Enhanced GRE, that is starting from wait till September 22nd when the actual GRE is released and then go for it. So that's going to be very, very student friendly, right? So as I told you, data interpretation questions in the current GRE, you will have, each section will have 2 sets of data interpretation questions. That could be 1 data interpretation question, under the 3 questions will be there. But then if you go for the enhanced GRE, there'll be just 1 data interpretation question. Clear? Yeah. Over to Ramya. Ramya.
Sure, ma'am. I'll take over from here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this amazing session, ma'am. And with that, I also would like to run my first poll. And here I go with the last poll, I would say. I'm so sorry. The last poll goes, after this amazing session on verbal and quant, I would like to know, how confident do you feel about the GRE test? Okay, I see some students are somewhat confident, some students are not very confident, and a lot of them are not confident at all. And a couple of them are confident. Very glad to see this. With that, I would like to end the poll. But I would quickly like to, talk a little bit about Galvanize here, like how Galvanize can help students, because I saw that a lot of students did ask for some additional videos, some tips and tricks out there. Well, in that case, I would like to quickly help you understand as to how Galvanize can help students out there. So here we go. So as a lot of you are quite aware that Galvanize does have free mobile applications, but in case you're looking for some more guidance with respect to the GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, and SAT preparation, we do have courses based on your availability and your requirement. And not only that, we do have, as I said, our admission counseling services. Now, with respect to the GRE courses, if you have very shorter time, you can go for a 3 months or 45 days plan. But in case you have sufficient amount of time, we do have courses based on 6 months as well as 1 year. To know more about these details, I will share my contact details in the chat box shortly. Please do get in touch with us. And also, I would like to talk a little bit about what are the perks and advantages of being with Galvanize. Well, the first important thing I would say is personalized study plan, because when I ran the poll, I saw that a lot of you are looking at a personalized study plan. And I'm pretty sure, and I'm very confident to say that yes, at Galvanize, you will be getting a personalized study plan.
Ramya, just to add to what Ramya said, it's an excellent personalized study plan, I would say. There will be like working professionals, there will be college goers, right? It's like customized, tailor-made for everybody's needs and needs. So you could we would allot tasks per day, right? So many hours are allotted. I mean, you have so many hours in your hand per day, right? So accordingly, we will allot tasks. So it's like highly personalized based on your diagnostic test score, based on your target date and the number of hours that is available for you. So it's an excellent study plan, and we have a dedicated course manager also for every student who is going to walk you through, remind you like, hey, you are like so many tasks behind and all that. So this is something very unique to Galvanize. Yes, Ramya, you can go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Also, yes, of course, you will have extensive practice questions and mock tests for your preparations. But not only that, as ma'am rightly said that, there is an update in the test pattern. You will have the updated test pattern at Galvanize. You will also have an easy way of learning. As you saw today, the video lessons and the way the experts have been guiding students out there, you will be learning a lot of concepts easily at ease at your home. You don't have to travel anywhere. You can sit at your home and prepare for this exam dedicated all the time that you have. And this is something a little bit about, I would like to talk about the admission process that we have. Like the first thing that we do on boarding is to have a profile evaluation call, wherein basically we try to understand what exactly the student's background is, their area of interest, based on which we help them with university shortlisting, with documentation process, visa, financing, and many such activities out there. As you see, profile evaluation is a part of the course, but I would urge you to fill out the profile evaluation form that has been shared in the chat box, because this profile evaluation call will help you understand at what level you are right now, and based on which you can take your immediate steps to go to your dream university out there. So make use of this opportunity. Profile evaluation is very, very important to understand where you are currently, what are the shortcomings are there in your profile, so that you could overcome them by making better profiles out there. Maybe we our experts could guide you as to what projects you can take up, or what are the shortcomings in your profile, internships. There are a lot of things when it comes to a profile. So have a conversation with the expert, understand. Also, you can get to know how Galvanize can help you with the test preparation along with the admission counseling part out there. So this is a one-on-one call that you will have with an expert to understand your profile, as well as how Galvanize can help you out there. And this is the link. It's already been shared in the chat box, but still I'm freezing the screen here, and we will shortly be opening our Q&A session where you can ask all your questions, and our experts will be there to guide you out there. And these are our contact details. So if you have any questions, please do post it in the chat box. So we have a question where the student would like to know if Galvanize is offline. Well, Galvanize is completely online. I would say the advantage is your exam itself is online. So being an online platform, it helps you to manage your time. It helps you to prepare for this exam at the ease of your home. As I kept saying that, you can stay at home, be at your place, and, study. And there will be expert guidance like Sowmiya, Divya to guide you for your preparations out there. So it's completely online platform. But yes, of course, as said by ma'am rightly, you might have some calls at times with the expert, and you will also get your doubts cleared online itself by the expert like Sowmiya out there.
So it'll be an unlimited ask the experts feature, right? So you ask any number of questions, same question you ask 1,000 times, also the experts will be there to answer in a way that you are convinced, till you are convinced. So recently we have written Galvanize, will we receive a certificate for participating?
So I believe, yes, ma'am, the student has participated in the GRE and TOEFL Olympiad that we had conducted. So I would like to make a note that yes, we will get in touch with you. So please give us some time. We will get back to you on this.
Any other questions? Anything related to, if you have doubts, how much time Galvanize take for documentation preparation? I think this should be the admissions counselor who would be the best person to be answered. Yes, Ramya, yes.
Exactly. So Mohammed, I would urge you to please fill in the profile evaluation form so that you could get in touch with our admission experts who can guide you as to what are the steps involved and how long it will take. And you can also get all your admissions related doubts solved out there. So please fill in the profile evaluation form and we will get in touch with you and help you for sure. Students, if you have any particular question with respect to GRE Quant Verbal, please do mention in the chat box. We would be glad to help you. So, Neeraj, your question is, do you conduct online live batch for GRE preparations or something similar to that? Neeraj, it's an one-to-one thing. It's a personalized study plan. So it is every individual will have a study plan wherein they log into our portal. They know what are the tasks they need to do on per day basis. And also these tasks will be, keeping a track of how many tasks you have completed, how much is pending, which will give you an idea that how much you're lacking in your preparations out there. And to keep a note on how you're working, how the progress is happening, you will also be allotted with a course manager who will be continuously monitoring your activities out there. So in case if you also miss out to do a task, or your task kind of pile up, they will be knocking your doors to say that, hey, Neeraj, you need to complete your task. You're lagging so much time behind out there. So it's an online portal and it's on one-on-one basis out there.
Sai Joshita, which newspaper should we read to improve our language? Anything, any newspaper always improves your life. Any good newspaper, right? Economics, Times of India, whichever newspaper you feel that has got a good amount of information, because the kinds of questions that are asked in reading comprehension passages could vary from literary thing to the current news, right? Anything could to be politics or science, anything. So it could be a science newspaper, or it could be something like Deccan Herald, or your Times of India, or Economics Times, or whatever is like a very good newspaper. Good in the sense really good, doesn't talk only about politics, or it's not biased. Any kind of newspaper, you can always go ahead and read that. That will definitely improve your language. Yes. Ramya, there's one person who's like waiting for his profile evaluation.
Yes. Yes. So in case you have filled in the form today, we will get in touch with you. But once the webinar is over, we will get in touch with you for sure. And please give us some time so that once the session is over, we will, check and we'll get back to you out there.
Okay, again, okay. Sai Joshita, what is the difference between TOEFL, IELTS, and GRE? Now, GRE tests both your quantitative and your verbal reasoning skills. The GRE is required for your all your study abroad programs. Like if you want to do your master's or your PhD abroad, definitely GRE is the pathway to that. Now, TOEFL and IELTS are only English speaking. They test your, your communication skills and also your written English skills alone. They don't test your quantitative ability. So TOEFL and IELTS are prerequisites to land into any university abroad, any foreign soil. It could be if you want to go for a work, or you want to go for a migration, or anything, right? You want to go for a job or studies. For everything, TOEFL and IELTS are required, either TOEFL or IELTS. Right. So TOEFL is the test of English as foreign language. And then IELTS is also very, very similar to TOEFL. And while TOEFL, IELTS, they test basically the same skills, your listening, speaking, writing, and your reading skills. All the 4 skills are tested in TOEFL and IELTS. GRE, verbal ability skills, is more to do with your critical reasoning, like understanding data and all that. But IELTS and TOEFL is more for your communication. When you want to, acclimatize in an environment that is very foreign to you, right? You should be able to understand what the professor is speaking, and you should be able to, you should be able to communicate with others and all that. Those kinds of skills are tested, or you will develop such skills for your TOEFL and IELTS. What is SAT? SAT is for undergraduate students, Sai Joshita. It's for students who have completed their grade 12 and then want to go for UG abroad, undergraduate studies abroad, SAT. We do offer coaching for SAT and PSAT also. Right from grade 9 or grade 8, we offer coaching for PSAT, SAT. If any of your siblings is interested, you can always point them to that, to Galvanize. So we are currently coaching. We have all produced lots of 99 percentiles in both SAT and PSAT. We have students who have like settled very well abroad in top-notch universities for UG also. For IELTS academic coaching preparation, how and for what time period the online live classes conducted? Again, IELTS academic coaching, we don't conduct any live classes, Neeraj. There are no live classes at all, except for SAT, that's for UG students, right? For school students, we do conduct live classes, instructor-led live classes are conducted. But then on a need basis, if there are like more students who want live classes, definitely we will consider that. So please place your request to the team, right? The academic advisors, the study abroad advisors are there, like Ramya. You could place your request that you want some kind of live classes. They would definitely consider and see that if there are a good number of students who want live classes, we would even consider giving that live classes. Currently, it's completely online. All IELTS, TOEFL, and GRE, all these are online. Only for SAT, we conduct live classes. Again, Ramya.
Yes, sure. I would request the student to please wait patiently so that we can get in touch with you once the session is over. We will address your questions and we will try our best to solve them as early as possible. So
you could put him on call with somebody who can respond immediately, Ramya.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We'll do that. Yeah. So I think with that, we have come to the end of the session.
So any more questions that you have, please feel free to mail them. The mail IDs are given here, and then you have the phone contact numbers also. Whatever queries you have, what is profile evaluation for? So all those queries will be addressed. You could send it by mail, send these questions by mail, Sai Joshita, and the experts will be there to help you out with this. You could make a note of Sai Joshita's number, and then, but nobody from Galvanize assists me. Yes,
No
Ramya,
issues.
I think
I'll
this has
take
to be
it. No,
addressed immediately. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely,
Yeah.
we'll do that. And here, Sai Joshita, we would like to explain what is profile evaluation. As I said, it's a part of the course. But what happens in a profile evaluation is basically an expert gets in touch with you. They understand what your queries are, what are your area of interest. Basically, a counseling call where we help you understand where are you currently with your study abroad, process, and we also suggest you with what are the things that you can do to make your profile very strong, so that you can, and what are the steps that you need to take basically to for your admissions part out there. So there are a lot of things will happen in a profile evaluation call. So I would urge you to please fill in the form so that our expert after the sessions can get in touch with you and help you get all your doubts cleared out there. So that's what happens in profile evaluation. So with that, we have done with the session for the day. A big thank you to everyone for actively participating in the session out there today. And once thank you to Divya and Sowmiya ma'am for being with us today and helping with the quant and verbal part out there. We will be coming up with many more such webinars out there. So if you would like to be a part of this webinars and know what are the next exciting webinars coming in, please do join our WhatsApp community group, which I will be sharing in the chat box, and also make a note of our contact details. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel in case you have missed out our webinars and you would like to take a look at them. Everything would be up in our YouTube channel. And if not, please get in touch with us. We will try our best to help you out there.
Yes,
So,
Sai Joshita, she will be forwarding all these mails to you. Yeah. Surely we will take this matter immediately. We'll ask somebody to get in touch with you immediately. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
everyone.
participating. Thank you. Yeah.